asking a question. Can you show of hands how many people now are entrepreneurs and have their own business? Okay. I'm wondering if you would share, if you mind, when you were thinking about going into your own business, what are some of the obstacles or fears that you had to overcome? Just if you call out something.
I can't.
I can't. Okay.
Not smart enough. Not good enough. Not enough knowledge. Never did it before.
Oh, I'm
All
looking at you.
encompassing.
Anybody else?
Will not get the clients.
A market, I heard that.
And it won't work.
Go ahead. Huh?
Licensing.
I said capital.
Where am I going to get the money? Capital, right?
Somebody else said, go ahead.
The runaround.
Yes.
I'll define that very quickly. You know what you're doing, you're not afraid, but when you go to get your permits or whatever, you get the runaround. That pisses me off. You know each other, hey, let's do this and take care of it. Over here, forget about it. You gotta do it by the
Sound like you're from Jersey, forget about it. So how about some of you that are thinking about doing this now, becoming entrepreneurs, what are some of the obstacles or fears, any that are different than what's up here? Go ahead.
I'm not sure how to price my time.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a big one. Big thing.
How about just value?
So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
What I discovered, what I'm getting involved with, the industry is wide open. The ability to keep it contained and focus on certain areas, prevent myself from getting overwhelmed.
Okay, so overwhelmed, would that be a good
Yeah.
Same focus.
focus? Okay, so I want to talk today, I see myself as a motivational speaker and a storyteller. And I want to speak to you about dealing with these fears and overcoming them and doing what your heart calls you to do. And I want to tell you a story. And this is a true story about a man who in his heart wanted to be a musician. That's what he wanted to do more than anything else in life. But instead, he worked at a department store in San Francisco for 35 years. He sold television sets, he sold refrigerators, and he sold appliances. And then one day, they came to him and they said, business isn't good, we're going to close down. And it was in the days before golden parachutes and the days before pension plans. And so they came to him and they said, listen, what could we do? Is there something we can do to help you? And the only thing he could think of, he said, you know what I would really like? I'd like the chair that I sat in the last 35 years. And you know what they did? They sold it to him. They sold him the chair. And he took this chair, literally, and put it on his back. And he took it to his son's home. And he put it in the living room, his son's living room. And he said to his son, I want you to make me a promise. I want you to promise me you'll never sit in this chair. And his son said, he's kept that promise. And then the dad said to him, he said, you know, in your life, there are going to be a lot of people that want you to sit down in life, that want you to compromise, that want you to comply, and that want you to conform. And he said to them, he said to his son, if you do that, and you make a habit of it, it will kill you. Be leery of anybody that tells you to compromise, to comply, and to conform. He said, son, stand up in life, create, and do something. And I believe that we are called to make our life a work of art. And I say that because my wife's an artist and she told me to say it. No. I say it because if you think about this, all works of art are originals. They're unique. And each of us, even if we don't always think about it all the time, each of us is unique. We're originals. There's nobody that's ever been born before. There's nobody that's ever here now. And there's nobody that ever will be born that has the absolute set of gifts and talents that each one of us has. And if we don't bring it forth, if we don't use them, they're lost to ever for the world. And so, in a sense, each one of us is commissioned to do one great work of art. And that great work of art is living our life to the best of our ability. And so, if I'm right, which I think I am, the question is, why don't more of us do it? Why don't more people live to their full potential? And I think the answer is that we go into fear and we go into judgment. You know, the self-talk that we do, like, what makes me think that I'm a good enough speaker, that I'm going to make money and people are going to pay me to bring my message forth? What makes me think I'm smart enough that I could start my own business and not fail, or not be overwhelmed, or not be good enough, or not be smart enough? What makes me think that? You know, it's all of this self-talk. And there's a psychologist named Daniel Amen that put it in a really, I think, a really great way. He said, what we need to do in our life is get rid of our ants. A-N-T-S. Automatic negative thoughts. And we all have them. We all have automatic negative thoughts. And the way we get rid of them, the first thing we need to do to get rid of them is to realize we're doing it. Because so many of us are so into talking to ourselves in a negative way, we don't even realize that we're doing it. When my wife and I were in California, I was leading a discussion group on self-improvement. And as I was leading the group, I dropped my pen. I was sitting around a table. And as I bent down to get it, under my breath, I whispered to myself, what a klutz. And somebody overheard it and said, you're leaving this group? Did you hear what you just said? And the truth is, I didn't realize that I said it. It was so automatic that I didn't even realize it. And that's what happens with us. So in order to get rid of these ants, the first thing we need to do is realize we're doing it, is realize that we're doing this negative self-talk. And then what we can do is replace the negative with something positive. We can ask ourselves, why is it that I feel this pull to step out and to do something on my own? We can ask ourselves, what would my life be like if I lived what's in my heart? We can ask ourselves, what is it that I am called to do? What is it that I am called to spend my time doing? We can think to ourselves, am I more committed to where I am now or to where I want to be? Am I more committed to my fear or am I more committed to my dream? So I want to give you a tool you can use that I use a lot, and I'll share how I've used it to help you overcome some of the fear. But I want to introduce it by telling you a fable first, okay? is about two brothers that travel once a year a long distance from their home, and they meet with their teacher. They have this teacher that they've been working with for years, and they travel a long distance to meet with him. And every year, they stay at the same inn, so they become friends with the innkeeper. And this one year they go, and they notice that the innkeeper is really down. He's kind of depressed. And they ask him what's going on, and he said, look, he said, my wife really wants to have a baby. She wants a child in our life, and it's just not happening. And I was wondering, I've heard that your teacher can do miracles. Do you think when you meet with him, you can ask him to pray for my wife and I, that we have a child? And the brothers say, sure, we'll be glad to do that. The next day, as they're walking to meet with their teacher, they see the innkeeper's wife, and she's wheeling a baby carriage. And people from the town are going up to her and saying, congratulations, congratulations, how wonderful. And she says, no, I'm not with child, and there's no baby in here. And so when they walk away from her, they kind of shake their heads and they say, wow, she wants a baby so badly, she's gone mad. Now, move forward a year later. The two brothers come back, and when they start to reach the inn, there's all kinds of noise coming from the inn, people partying. And they open the door, and sure enough, there's a big party going on. And when the innkeeper sees them, he rushes over and hugs them and kisses them and says, oh my goodness, thank you so much. It worked, it worked. We have a baby. And everybody's happy, except one of the brothers is really sad behind his smile. And so the next day, he goes and he asks his teacher if he can have a one-on-one meeting with him. And the teacher says, of course. And he said, the brother begins to cry. And he said, don't I matter to you? Aren't I important to you? I've been coming here 20 years. And every year, I tell you how much my wife wants a baby. Pray for us. And nothing happens. This innkeeper, 1 year, and he has a baby. He said, you don't even know him. He's not your student. I am. Why is it he has a baby and we don't? And the teacher looks at him and he said, you are my friend. You are my student. And I love you. But tell me, did your wife buy a baby carriage? The point is, when we want to step out into our dreams, we need to act. We need to act. We need to be willing to take a leap and believe that a net will appear. We need to be willing to risk the uncertainty to take action. And so, I know you spent thousands of dollars to come see me today. I'm going to give you a technique that I use all the time, and I'll give you 2 examples of how I use it that will really help. It's a question. Maybe 2 questions. So, here it is. Suppose my dream isn't impossible. What's the first thing I would do? And then do it. Suppose my dream isn't impossible. What's the first thing I would do? And then do it. And it doesn't have to, I want to tell you this right now, it doesn't have to be something big. It doesn't have to be unanimous. It could be a small step. It could be something you try for an hour or a day and just get the feeling of what it's like. Well, I want to give you 2 examples, and they're both really recent examples from my own life, okay? I write for a magazine. And a couple of years ago, I was taking a writing class, and I wrote about the pain of my first marriage breaking up. And about 2 years ago, I was taking another class. Actually, my wife was teaching the class. It's an arts is healing class. And she asked us to, this is so interesting with the quote you put up there today, she asked us to write about an event in our life that when it happened was really painful. And we thought it was terrible, but in the end, turned out to be something good. And so I wrote part 2 to the first article that I wrote. And then I had a friend who was going through a divorce, and he was really upset. And I read both articles to him over the phone, and I said, see, I was in a really dark place like you are, but you can get to the light. Well, he liked what I wrote so much, he went to the editor of the magazine and said, you gotta print this article. And it's a really deeply personal article. Part 2 is something I actually wrote to my ex-wife about how I realized what a jerk I was when we were getting divorced, and how I really apologized for some of the stupid things I did, and I having to apologizing to my kids, and so it's deeply personal. So I agreed to do it. And then when it's going to be in this October, when the deadline started to come, I started to think, those ants, what are you doing? Do you really want 100,000 people reading about how, what you were like then, and the personal stuff you put in this now? And I woke up 2 nights in a row, really, really sweating. And so after it happened the second time, I sat down, and one of the things you need to do, by the way, just parenthetically, is you need to, when you want to find your purpose, and you want to live with passion, and you want to do these things, God bless you, you need to make some quiet time. You need to spend time, whether you meditate or go in the woods or just sit down. And so I sat down in our bedroom, and I thought to myself, remember the question, what is the first step I can take to move out of this fear and get out of this stress? And what came to me was I could do 2 things. I could call up the editor and say, you know what, I changed my mind, I'm not doing the article. Or I could do the article. And I wasn't due for a month. And I actually, what I had to do, it was too long, it's 2 articles, so she told me you really need to significantly edit it. And so I made the decision that day, after the second night being up, I'm going to do the article today. I sat down, it took me 20 minutes, I hit the send key, and 10 minutes later, I got an email back. Thank you, it's great. What's the one first step I can take? And the other time it happened to me, I was scheduled to speak to a group. And I started to think, and I love doing it. I've been doing it every week since 1998. And I started to get into my head. And I have an MBA, so speaking before a business group shouldn't be scary. And it was a big group, and I started to think, I wonder if I could really do this. I wonder if I have anything that they're going to be interested in. Probably they could have found a better speaker. All that stuff, those ants, And again, I sat down and I said, okay, what is the first thing I can do? What is the first step I can take to get rid of this fear and to get rid of this stress? And what came to me was, prepare to talk. Prepare to talk. And so I started to do research on the talk. And when I did the research, I thought, I got some good stuff here. And I know I can deliver it well. What am I afraid of? And it went away. So that's the question. If you're willing to sit down and ask it, suppose my dream isn't impossible, what's the first thing I would do? And then you'll do it. So I want to read you a quote. I love this quote. It's by a rabbi named Abraham Joshua Heschel. And what he said was, in the eyes of the world, I am average. But in my own heart, I am of great moment. The challenge I face is how to actualize, how to concretize the quiet eminence of my own being. And so he's saying, look, people out there might think I'm average. They may even think I'm below average. But I know in here, there's something great. I have something to offer. Just like all of us here, all of you have something to offer. And the challenge is, he said, is how do I do it? How do I make it concrete? How do I bring it from here to out here? How do I make it real? And for me, that's what life is. That's what life is all about. To say, I've got this stuff boiling in here. And how can I overcome the fear? How can I overcome my own doubt? How can I overcome my thoughts of limitation and bring that out into the world? You know, there's a story about a young boy who gets a kite, and he gets really, really excited about this kite. So he flies it all the time, and he gets so good at it that one day it rises above the clouds. So you can't see the kite, all you can see is the string. And an older man comes and says to him, "What are you doing, young fella?" And he says, "I'm flying a kite, sir." And the old guy says, "I don't see a kite. I only see a string. How do you know there's a kite there?" And the young fella says, "I can feel the tug, sir. I can feel the tug." And my guess is nobody would be here today if you all didn't feel the tug to do something different, the tug to step out, the tug to be whatever it is that you can be. So I read about a really interesting experiment that some psychologists did that I want to share with you. They got a group of people and they said, what we want you to do, we want you to watch some other people dribbling a basketball, and when these people pass the ball, your job is to count how many times each person passes the ball, okay? And you got 1 minute to do it, and they had to really concentrate because they were passing the balls really quickly, okay? In the middle of this, sometime at the 30-second mark, a person in a gorilla suit comes out and walks in between all the people that are passing the ball, okay? Steps out front, beats his chest, and then leaves. Now the real question was, how many people saw the gorilla? Consistently, when they do this experiment, 50% of the people don't see the gorilla. Can you imagine? I mean, walking out right in the middle, no, it's not it, right in the middle of all of this that's going on, and they don't even see it. It's called inattentional blindness. Inattentional blindness. And the reason they don't see it is because our brains try to come up with a meaningful narrative of what's happening in front of us. And if our brain can't come up with the meaningful narrative, it subconsciously edits it out. And so what that means for us is what we believe and what our attitudes are what we're going to demonstrate in life. And so we need to look at what it is we're putting in here, what our attitudes are, what our belief systems are. I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, will I get clients? It's not going to work. I'm not sure I have that much confidence. Where am I going to get the money? We need to look at what our beliefs and attitudes are that are holding us back, and what it is that's helping us move to where we want to move. And the ones that are holding us back, we need to release. We need to let them go. We need to come up with a new story for our life, a new life story. And that's not the easiest thing to do, but we can do it. And I want to share with you one way, and 1.5 ways actually. One of the ways you can do it is to write a life vision, okay? And my wife over there, and Erica and I have talked, my wife has become an expert in writing life vision. So she's going to do at some point, probably in August, one of these sessions to teach people. And it's not a 2-sentence vision, it's actually maybe a page or page and a half vision where she takes you through meditation and music to where you're going to be in a year, how you want your life to focus in a year. And it's amazing if you do that diligently and then take that vision statement and read it in the morning when you wake up and at night when you go to sleep, how it happens. And we first came upon this, I was teaching an abundance class. And as part of it, you had to write a vision statement. And we were in Arizona at the time and wanted to leave, get back near the water. And we went around the class and everybody read their vision statement. And when my wife read her vision statement, 2 women to the side of me leaned over and they both said almost at the same time, they're going to be leaving. 6 weeks later, I had my job here. So it's a powerful tool, and it really, really works. And she'll be, you can look for that. But there's also another thing that we can teach ourselves to do, and that is to visualize ourselves. And sports people do this all the time, visualize themselves succeeding. And what it is, just find a quiet place and close your eyes and visualize yourself as a success and try to bring in as many of your senses as possible. So see yourself being a success. What kind of meetings are you going to? What kind of marketing are you going to? Who are you doing? Who are you speaking to? Where are you? What kind of office space? Anything you could think of. Listen, what are people saying to you? What are you saying to yourself? I thought when I was doing this, even taste it. What kind of really good restaurants are you going to be going to? Because you're making so much money. As many of your senses as you could bring into it to really ground it. It helps. And I want to give you a couple of examples. I said athletes do it, but there's another group that perhaps you might not think of that is really good at visualizing. POWs. POWs, because 2 things that POWs have that helps when you vision. One is they have the ability to think, and the other is they have time. They have time. And I'll just give you a couple of examples I read about. I read about an American POW from Vietnam that every single day he would visualize himself playing golf on his home golf course. Now, he literally envisioned every shot he took. He'd see himself taking every shot. He'd see himself walk to the green to hit the next shot and the next shot. And he did that every single day. When he was released, and he went home, the first time he played the golf course, he broke par, which he had never ever done in his entire life before. And the other example is about a Chinese dissident that was arrested in China, and he was a pianist, and a concert pianist. And he was in jail for 5 years. When he came out, a week after he was out, he did his first concert. And he got an incredible standing ovation. And people said, "You're better now than before. How could you do this when you haven't touched the piano for 5 years?" And he said, "I rehearsed this concert every day for 5 years." It really works when you see yourself as a success. It's kind of like the universe joins you in that success. And you'll start, my wife's favorite word in the dictionary is synchronicity. You'll start running into the right people that are going to help you. You'll all of a sudden see the right book. You'll turn on the TV and there's somebody that's talking about exactly what you need to know. It just works. So I saw another survey where people were asked, who do you think made the greatest success of their life? Who do you think made the greatest success of their life? And the top people, now this isn't in any order because I really don't know the order, that came up were Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Jesus, the Buddha, Mother Teresa, Eleanor Roosevelt, Nelson Mandela, and Bob Marley. And I know that when they looked at these people, they all had one thing in common. What they had in common was early on, they committed themselves to something. And no matter what the obstacles were, no matter what their fears were, they decided they were going to walk through them and do what they felt they needed to do. You know, this isn't 100% that where there's a will, there's a way. That doesn't work 100% of the time. But you know what does work 100% of the time? Where there's no will, there's no way. So when I was preparing this, I thought to myself, because I'll share some of my own story with you in a little bit, what lately has been driving me to do this? Because I've been doing a lot of stuff to really stretch myself lately. Like just last week, I signed on with a mentor to write a book. And it's like the last thing I need is more work to do. And I thought to myself, you know, it must be I'm getting old. Because one of the drivers for me is a word called legacy. What is it that I want people to say about me when I'm not here anymore? What is it that I want people to say Ron Fox accomplished in his life? And what do I want people to say when they say he really affected other people's lives? He made a difference. And for me, it means really going out and stretching. So when I was a young guy in business, you know how books, every once in a while there'll be a book, everybody's got to read it, okay? Well, one of the books that everybody had to read that was in business was called The Search for Excellence. I don't know, anybody here heard of that book? It's by a guy named Peters and Waterman. And in that book, they talk about an experiment that some psychologists did. And here's the experiment. They got a group of adults and they said, we have two tasks for you to do. One of the tasks was to solve complex puzzles. And the other task that they had to do was to proofread some really technical material. In the midst of them doing that, there was all kinds of intermittent noise, such as two men arguing in Spanish, another guy talking really loudly in Armenian, a desk calculator going off, a mimeograph machine going off, a typewriter going off, and all kinds of street noise, okay? And then they took the group and they split them up. And they said to one group, you go do the puzzles and you go do the proofreading. The other group, they met with them and they gave each person a button. And they said, whenever you press this button, the noise goes away. So which group would you think did better? The button. Yeah, it's not a trick question. The button, the group with the button did better. So you might say, big deal, why are you telling us this story? And the reason is, not one person that had a button ever pressed it. They did 5 times the number of puzzles that the other group did, and the amount of errors they made in the proofreading was infinitesimal compared to the other group. But not one of them ever pressed their button. The reason they did better was because they felt that they had some power over their situation. They felt that they had a choice and that their choice empowered them. And for me, the message for us is all of us have a choice. We have a choice to influence our lives, to step forward or to not step forward. And as we make the choices to say yes, we can do wonderful things when we really believe, and we really know in here how powerful we are. Any one of us can do great things. Robert Schuller was a minister who founded Crystal Cathedral in Southern California. And he used to talk all the time about possibility thinking. He said, because what possibility thinking does for you is it tells you what could be. It breaks you out of the box that you build for yourself and says, I don't have to live just in this little box. There's so much more that could be. There's so much more that I could be. And he said, that gives you really good feelings. It gives you feelings of hope. It gives you feelings of faith. And it gives you feelings of positive anticipation. So I want to switch and talk a little bit about passion. And I looked up one of the dictionary definitions of passion. And here's what it is. It said, an intense emotion, a compelling feeling, enthusiasm, or desire for something. And then I read about a book called Writing for Your Life by a lady named Dina Metzger. And she writes something. I want to try a little experiment. Now, it's not going to be quite what she did, but here's what she said. She said, suppose a friend calls you and says, the passion police are coming to your house, and they're going to be there in 20 minutes. And you've got 20 minutes to write down everything in your life that's precious to you, that's essential to you, that sustains you, that you think you can't live without. And anything that you don't write down, you forget. Yeah. So I thought we could do a little experiment, okay? We're not going to do 20 minutes, but I'll give you like 30 seconds or a minute if you could take out a piece of paper and a pencil, and don't put down family and stuff like that. We'll just take that as a given, okay? Well, take it as a given that you think your family's precious. Why is everybody laughing about that? So what I want you to do, I'll give you 30 seconds or a minute. Think about this and write down what you see in your life as precious, as essential. What sustains you, and what do you think you can't live without? And then I'll tell you what the next step is, okay?